Is it do you guys see the Dundore? Do you see the red button on top?
It's recording.
Perfect. So just again, just sign it. Write your name in the chat box, and then Ms. Dundore had the question of what do you know about practical life?
Oh yes, teacher names, who your student is with. That would be nice. Ooh, a 3K. Ooh, sorting silverware. My favorite. Folding towels. Got lots of towels to fold tonight. Making cake, perhaps? What's Mackenzie say? Oh, yes. One of our favorites. All right. Now, the next thing, since we're videotaping this for everybody, I thought it would be nice. Think of a question that other parents might have about practical life and type that in the chat. If you were someone coming into Montessori and you wanted to tell someone, what would you be asking? Good questions. Why do they need to? What was that, Rob? Oh, you guys are hitting everything. Yay. Excellent. Okay. One more question for you. What do you wonder about practical life? You know, I always tell the kids, I wonder what would happen if, you know, the sun didn't come up. What do you wonder about practical life? What if I didn't prepare a meal? I wonder what would happen. You know what? We're going to talk about that too. Any other ones? There's so much to wonder about, but you don't know what you don't know yet. So maybe we'll answer that at the end. Yes, they do. I can verify that one. I wonder if they have more interest in helping me around. I couldn't read the rest of that. We'll get to all of these, I'm sure. And we will have some answers, you know. Hopefully we can bring it back together at the end. See if you have any more questions or comments. So first I want to give you a little background about Maria Montessori. So Maria Montessori was born in 1870. Okay, and she was the first woman ever granted a medical degree by an Italian university. At the age of 28, Montessori became directress of a tax-supported school for defective children. She developed materials and methods which allowed them to perform reasonably well on school problems previously considered far beyond their capacity. Then she moved on to normal children of the slums. So she taught in very poor conditions. She was thinking outside the box for a very long time. So if we look at the date, 1870, and then at 28, how old would that make her? Or what year would it be in 28 years later when she was starting her first schools? I know Carmen knows the answer already, probably. Can you type it in the chat for us kindergarten Montessori math teachers? 1898. All right, so a couple more years in 1918, I do believe she was teaching during a pandemic, right? And so practical life, I believe, really became popular back then. So in a Montessori classroom, the beautiful materials are intended to stimulate the little child's natural desire to act and learn through action. Materials provide students with action, which shall give him a better control of his own body and his willpower. The materials will lead him naturally from a simple action to a more difficult one. So whenever you come into a Montessori classroom, the shelves are always easiest on the top, and it goes from easiest to hardest, from left to right. Then it goes down like you're reading a book, goes left to right, easiest to hardest. And we have 3 shelves, so we're going to do one more. The hardest work would be on the bottom right side of the shelf. Then it goes around the classroom. So the classroom, is divided into 5 areas. Practical life is our first area, then sensorial, then math, language, cultural. Okay, and then our art area kind of ties the cultural and practical life, and so that's kind of stuck in between. We have 3 age levels, and we teach teaching. So I'm not really here to teach the children. I give presentations, is what we call it, and the older students guide the younger students. Yes, even online, I'm seeing that the old kids are jumping in when the new kids are, not too sure of themselves. They kind of come in and help them. And so it's been a real eye-opener to see how gracious our students have been. So yeah, it's been fun. So now, this is not the first time that Montessori has gone remote. Back in her day, though, she didn't have the internet to help parents. And I found this quote in a book that I found. It's called the Montessori Manual. Did I write that right? Yeah. Montessori Manual for Teachers and Parents. And it was written, I'm like, oh, this is written in 1966, which was when Montessori kind of got ousted out of the United States. So this woman wrote this book, but it was copyrighted in 1913. Something to ponder, the years, how things have changed, but yet how things have very much stayed the same. And I like this quote out of this book because I'll read it to you. The mother on a desert island who's dominated by Dr. Montessori's love and respect for the child would accomplish much more without the formal materials than a mother who uses the materials without sympathy and understanding requisite for success. So, dear mother, do not become discouraged if you cannot afford the materials. Above all, have faith and confidence in your child and your ability to put the Montessori spirit into the everyday affairs of the child's home life. It hits me. That's what you guys are doing. You are helping us to instill a love of learning. So the Montessori area, we work this is the most important area. It puts all of the other areas in order. If we didn't have practical life, the children wouldn't have order, concentration, coordination, and independence to work by themselves. So I just kind of briefly went on what order is. And, I say a lot of times that when I got my puppy dog, my Lily dog, she showed me That's really sad because I have 2 older children. That order is so important, and routine. If kids do the same thing, as hard as it is for us adults to do a routine that is exactly the same every day. And if you're part of my class, you know that it's every day is the same thing. And when you stray off of that, it just can cause chaos for the child. So anyways, order is very important, and it is truly the beginning of your child's academic education. Independence, let them get their breakfast. I see kids every day coming to school, which is fine, but let's make it part of our practical life activity and let them get their breakfast. Have their cereal in a little pitcher that they can pour into a bowl. Have them set their table. Don't, let's try to break that servitude to them. Let them do it because they really do like doing it. And another one of my favorite sayings is help me to do it myself. Concentration. That little bag of beans that we sent home? Those are the magical beans that can give your kid concentration. Like you won't believe. If them grasping, and we'll go through all the different activities, and your teacher probably has done it already too, but those beans were put in there for a very important reason, because kids love scooping and spooning and pouring and measuring. So this is just one of the things that helps develop concentration, and which is an important part, as Miss Marianne and Miss Baker will tell you, in the lower elementary program. So practical life at home is very different than practical life at school. I've tried to set up some stuff here in my kitchen for you to see. Just having things around, there's things that you have in your house right now that you can have setting out and set up so that they can develop skills, okay? That they can take things off a shelf and put it back when they're done with it. I don't have it exactly set up the way I would like to have it if I had small children here, but I certainly can help you develop a setup for you at home if you need that. So one of my favorite things that I usually talk about, and I thought I brought it home, but I can't find it, is my Grace and Courtesy box. Some of you have heard of my Grace and Courtesy box, and it's just a box, a beautiful box that has my rules in it, basically. How to walk in the room, how to ask for help, just reminders of grace and courtesy. So if you're having a problem in your house, it would be a little box that you could go to and pick out something and say, oh, we're going to practice getting mom's attention when she's busy. Because I know you guys are working at home too. So there can be rules on how to set that up. And just put it in and practice it. Sounds easy, right? I know, not easy. Coughing, blowing one's nose. Now, hello, does that not speak to a pandemic that Miss Marianne and I were talking, like, why is that in our albums? Why is that so important? So coughing, blowing one's nose, knowing how to fold in Kleenex, and blowing your nose, throwing it away, washing your hands, okay? Another thing is what to do if you're angry. I use the zones of regulation, which is a place where kids can go and calm themselves down. And I give them tools to help them calm down. You can Google zones of regulation and you can find all sorts of things about that. The other thing, care of self is another thing. We have little button, frames, tying frames, zipping frames, but you have those at home too. I wore some examples of it. Just a sweater. If you're wearing a sweater, let your kid unbutton your sweater, button it back up again. Zippers, snaps, Put it on a chair. Let them button it up on a chair. Snap it. Put their coat on a chair. Zip it and unzip it. So that's a really easy one. And make sure they're dressed. Make that part of your routine in the morning is getting dressed and combing your hair along with the breakfast. And this is just the way it is. If you don't get it done before 8 o'clock, that's your practical life work for in the morning. Okay? Combing and brushing their own hair. Have that set up for them that they can learn how to comb their own hair. It takes time. It just takes time, and it's not always easy to get done. But again, it's something that can be put into their routine. Now, hand washing is a very important skill for me. I love the hand washing stand. I set up a little one here, and I think it's important, and I want you just to watch it. I do it silently. There's many, 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 many steps to hand washing. And the reason hand washing is so important in our classroom, not only for cleanliness, but as in most work in our room, it's not for the end result, but for the learning all the steps of something. And I remember Miss Missy having a kid go, I know why I have to do it like this now. It has to be in this order or it just doesn't work right, Miss Missy. So I'm going to do my best with a very small work area here. And so just watch. I'm going to try to zoom down this one camera. Can you see it okay? All right. So first thing we're going to do is get some water. Hand washing. And that's how I would present hand washing in the classroom. Do the kids see every single step that I do? No, probably not. Did you see every step that I did? No, probably not, because there's 50, how many steps, Miss Ami? 52 steps or something in hand washing? So you might have missed something, right? So like I said, the end result is what we're going, we're just trying to give them as much information. So now, here's a quiz for you. What are, can you hear me? Okay. So what did you see when you saw this presentation? If you could see it well enough. I don't know what you saw or anything, so does anyone want to turn their mic on? Really got a couple of minutes. I will give you the answers because we're in time constraints. The one thing that I like the kids to notice is the different shapes on the hand washing. I have rectangles. I have an oval. I have a circle. The bowl is a circle. The table is a rectangle. Yep. Nice. Thank you, Melissa. I don't know if you noticed when I even folded the towel, it went from a square to a rectangle to a square to a rectangle. Do I tell them this? No. Nope. They just see it. So they know what all this stuff is. Okay? The other thing that you can do at home is for the care of the environment, folding, dusting, scrubbing tables, sweeping, mopping, polishing, plant care. These are all the plants that are usually in the classroom, and they're much better taken care of at school because the kids love to wipe the leaves. At the end, I have some resources that you can use to set some of these things up a little bit more. Then we fly through it during a presentation online or at school. The kids won't be able to tell you how to do it. And then the last one is strengthening exercises. And this is the bean bags that I was talking about, grasping, putting them in a bowl and letting them just use their whole hand, putting them in pitchers, letting them pour from cup. It doesn't matter. Matching cups. We get a little anal on wanting to have perfect matching cups and beautiful, you can use plastic, but glass will teach them to be more careful. Spooning, scooping, clothespins are good for strengthening those fingers. Cutting paper, all important. Another thing that I like to do at least once a week with my classes, we do some sort of cooking. So there's banana cutting, and cooking does not mean at the stove necessarily. Banana cutting, apple cutting, orange squeezing, celery cutting. See how it's getting from easy banana cutting down to carrot cutting, which is very hard. And the knife question that we had earlier, we start with a very simple knife. And then we use apple cutting, the one that you can cut 8 pieces at one time. Orange squeezing for that hand motion. Celery cutting is a little bit easier than carrot cutting. All right. And then setting the table. So every day setting the table. How many silverware? The silverware sorting thing. And then sewing. And sewing, if you don't know a lot about sewing, that's okay. Stringing beads is great work. Lacing cards, cutting yarn, tying knots, button sewing, and then embroidery. Again, easiest to hardest. And then I have my resources for you. So This one is super cute. Someone asked about chart. So this is a chores chart for kids. And we will put this in a file, or did we? I don't know. So anyways, this is an age-appropriate chore for children, one of my favorites. And then, let's see if I can get back again. And then Miss Mary Ann put together a beautiful document for lower L and a couple more things about primary. Okay, did I do it? To the minute. Any questions? No questions? Oh, Miss Em, are you sending it out right now?
Does anyone have any questions, or we can move on to, I believe, lower elementary?
Lori and Ami, I did notice in the chat a couple of questions. One of them was, what does it teach?
Oh, yes. Let me stop presenting. Practical life is really in the beginning of reading and writing and everything, because we're trying to strengthen the hand in practical life. So the hand is, Miss Marianne, help me with the quote, the tool. What is that quote? I can't remember. Anyway, the hand is very important. For
The instrument of the mind, that quote. The hand is the instrument of the mind.
Yes. Did anyone, can you hear that? Everyone's kind of blacked out on my screen right now. Yes. So we're just strengthening the hand, because the more coordination they have in their hand, the easier it'll be for them to go from practical life, which the 3 and 4-year-olds are very into. But then once they start going into the math, they need that pincer grip to pick up the tiny beads, which we'll be talking about when we do our parent ed math night. They need that skill to pick up teeny tiny little things. Okay, so, and then the concentration, the order, and independence, because in Montessori, it's all about independence and being able to take care of things by yourself with assistance. Does that answer the question? And then the whole left to right, beginning reading. Can I add anything else to that?
I noticed there were 2 more questions. Another one was, do I need to buy anything for the knife skills?
For the knife skills,
Yeah.
KNF. Okay.
I think somebody probably saw it in the presentation, the knife skills, like how to use a knife, like cutting and chopping.
Right.
Using
Well, we start with a banana, and we use like a plastic knife to cut the banana, and then we just keep going, you know, like to a serving knife, to a butter knife, to a little spatula knife. I mean, there's all sorts of different cutting tools that we use. Those crinkle cut tools where you kind of press down, those are a good cutting tool. I have a lot of things up here, but I don't have it up here. But there's all sorts of cutting tools that you can really simplify. And of course, knife work is always done with the parent right by their side. Even in the classroom, that they get not a super sharp knife. It doesn't take a super sharp knife to, I mean, if we're doing chopping like in a restaurant chopping, we're not doing that. We're just trying to get them to use their hand to push down on the carrot, and a peeler to peel the carrot.
And then Lori, one other question or kind of like thought that Stacy shared was, I wonder if they have more interest in helping me around the house than I allow due to being preoccupied with getting the task completed. Do you want to talk maybe a little bit about the process and
Yep.
what they're interested in?
Yes, they want to do what you are doing, basically. They want to do big people work. We just have to learn how to adapt that big people work to their level by having smaller tables and places that fit them comfortably. Yes, I would rather have people not come to my online class if they are cleaning up their breakfast dishes and washing their dishes and combing their hair and getting, buttons fixed on their shirt. And that's really important. That is the practical life area for 3 and 4-year-olds. So if you have a 3-year-old, that is very important for them to have a routine. And I know when we first opened and our start time was like 7:10 when we're in person. And people are like, how are we going to get these kids to eat and out the door at, this early time? Isn't it Montessori to eat breakfast and have the routine, and like, yeah. So right now is the time that you can practice that and get that breakfast routine going. So when we do go back in person, whenever that may be, you will have that routine for them and they will know how to take care of things themselves. Does that explain it a little bit? Am I off track? Thumbs up if you understand. Any other questions?
Ms. Dundore?
Yes.
I'm curious with a lot of the tasks for practical life, if the act of just having the kid do the task, sweep the floor or wash the dishes, is that more important than doing it right? So, I can have Charlotte wash the dishes, but that doesn't mean they're going to come out clean. So
Right.
What's the priority there?
The process. The process is definitely the priority. I can tell the story of, I don't know if you guys have heard this one, but my little daughter who is now, and someone asked the question about, will they do this when they're older too? My daughter is now 28 years old, has her own apartment, and she still talks about Montessori all the time. I involve her, actually make her talk about it. But one day she was 3 years old and she decided that crayons were going to go on her wall. And I just happened to be in Montessori training, like, I got this. Crayons are for paper, right, Claire? Yes, I'm sorry, Mommy. So I had my little bucket and I made a little pail and a little toothbrush for her to clean off the wall, so, and I gave her a little bar of soap because that's what we do. We use a bar of soap and we scrub. I'm like, are you okay, Claire? She's like, yep, got it, Mommy. So she's in there and she's scrubbing and scrubbing. And then pretty soon I hear her crying. I'm like, oh my God, Claire, what's wrong? And I run in there and she's like, can I have a bigger brush? You know what? I didn't think of it. You do need a bigger brush, so it's not the process. I mean, it is a process, but to them, it's important work. She really wanted to get that wall cleaned and I didn't give her the right tools to do it. So we have to be mindful of what's happening before us. It might look okay at the moment, but it can fall apart in a heartbeat and that's okay. Good question. Thank you, Liz. But if you have to show it too, see, we always show the presentation. And then hopefully they don't stray that far from it. Okay.
We're going to go over to Ms. Danette.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and present. All right. Can you see my screen?
No.
And pardon?
I can't. No, we can't see it.
You can't.
Stop. Did I stop on me?
Yep, you've stopped.
Okay.
Okay. All right, can you see it now?
No.
Oh my gosh, come on, I practiced this.
The joy of technology, right?
Yeah, yep. Okay. We'll try again.
Jeanette,
Okay,
we
now-
can do it. Yep.
Yay. Okay. Practical life in the Montessori elementary classroom. Again, we're concentrating on, or we're focusing on concentration, coordination, independence, and order. I'm just going to go ahead and read through this. I can't see anybody, so if there's questions, just stop me. Practical life in lower L is just as important in the elementary curriculum as it is in the primary curriculum. It helps the children integrate their learning and continue to develop their independence. The lower L child is in the second plane of development, and practical life helps children experience in this second plane of development, they experience great growth, both physically and mentally. They're drawn to social experiences, interactions, learning about social relationships within the environment. So a lower L classroom will tend to be a lot more vibrant than a primary classroom because they talk. That's what they like to do. They're genuinely interested in the thoughts, feelings, and treatments of others, and they're developing and testing their sense of humor. Some of the characteristics of children in this second plane of development: for the first years, they're absorbed with their self. They're learning to understand their self as a person, and they love to be the center of attention. First graders enjoy being the first in line. They enjoy they have an unending supply of energy. They may act silly, critical of others, or defiant. They're learning to control their emotions and may cry easily. First years become very attached to their teachers. How many of you are so sick of hearing your child talk about their teacher? And you could just pull your hair out. They enjoy routines, and they enjoy developing their imagination and enjoy imaginative play. With second years are more composed. They are continuing to learn about themselves and others. They're beginning to reason. They worry and are self-critical, and they may express a lack of confidence. They demand more of their teacher's time. And third years, the average third year is curious and emotional, becoming easily inspired or upset. They recognize the needs of others. They tend to be extremely active and are sometimes impetuous. They're quick to laugh and can be silly, and they're able to assume some responsibility for their actions. They may take on more tasks or projects than they are capable of, and they are self-critical. Our job as directresses is to help develop a positive, realistic self-concept, respect themselves and their unique identity, understand, respect, and build relationships with others, gain awareness of feelings and how to express them, participate in groups, and learn from their mistakes. So, ideas for taking care of the home. I've kind of divided mine into 4 categories. There's going to be some overlap as like what Mrs. Dundore had. So dusting, sweeping, vacuuming, washing windows or mirrors, folding laundry, again, starting with towels and washcloths, again, sorting laundry, setting the table, bussing the table, washing dishes, filling or emptying the dishwasher. Again, that making juice, making muffins, making French toast, making salads and salad dressings, shovel snow, raking leaves, picking up sticks, getting the mail, watering plants. Pet care is big at this age. Feeding, watering, and grooming the pet. Again, common sense is going to dictate there is things that you are going to do with an adult present. More ideas. Walking in sand, walking uphill, walking downhill. We have got the lakefront. That is a great place to just go walk, get in the sand, get in those dunes, uphill, downhill. It's a phenomenal exercise. Skipping, running, jumping rope, riding a bike, walking the dog. Things to do as a family. Perplexus, this is the game here, Perplexus. Dominoes, board games like Mousetrap, Operation, Monopoly, Mancala. Card games, Kings in the Corners. Some people call it trash, some people call it garbage. Solitaire or Yahtzee, read aloud. Puzzles are great. Skills to learn to last a lifetime. Again, braiding. Rainbow looms are phenomenal. Braiding hair, braiding friendship bracelets, weaving, there's those placemats. When they do an activity like that, they tend to take more care of their surroundings if they have a placemat that they've made. Knitting, they can arm knit, finger knit, using a loom. Crocheting, sewing pot holders, mug mats, placemats, pillowcases. Again, that embroidery. Connections that always matter. Help your child make connections. Organizing their school workspace, having their materials ready for each day. How does being organized help you each day? Extend the learning for any of the classroom at work activities. So for example, the school did the postcard activity. Extend the learning into the community, riding a city bus, community service, farmers markets in the fall. And that was it. How quick am I? So down and dirty.
Great job. Does anyone have any questions?
And I was going to show you, here are some examples of pillowcases that kids have actually made for me. So on a regular basis, I did have a sewing machine in the classroom. Perplexus, I have my own Perplexus. This was always in the classroom. It's always good to have, I think, those things in the classroom so that the kids can take a break when they need a break. Kind of do a quick game with somebody, set parameters for how long they can play, and then get back to work. That's all I have. I am like fast.
I'm curious if you have any tips for helping a child that's very much about perfection. So there's a fear to start or try anything because she doesn't know how to, and she doesn't want it to not be perfect. Do you have any ideas on how we can help our first grader in that?
I think a lot of times giving them enough time. So sometimes they might need some more time just to take that first step. Give them a lot of support in that first step. Again, give them enough time to think through things before they jump in, be available. And I think it's also important when you know that they don't have that confidence to let them make the mistakes and then you fix them. And you slowly get them to the mindset that it's okay to make those mistakes.
Jeanette, can you stop presenting so we can see everybody? Thank you.
There.
I would say maybe with a perfectionist, saying that you could put the work aside for right now and come back to it later, especially if they're getting frustrated. So a lot of times those perfectionists will get really frustrated because they want it perfect now. The only problem is that their mind has a picture of what they want it to look like, and the hand isn't working exactly how they see it in their mind. So setting it aside and then coming back to it later. Often I talk to the kids about being patient with yourself because your hand is working with your eyes, is working with your brain to get everything working together. And so when I do something, I remind them it looks easy because I had so much more practice. So, telling them to be patient with themselves, it'll come along.
Allowing them to see you make mistakes as well and how you process through is a big thing. I don't know, Mrs. Dundore, you still have your hand up. Are you still? Okay.
I'm just trying to get attention.
Okay.
Great job, you guys.
The wave.
Does anyone else have any questions, comments? It's an open discussion. Maybe people can share what some of those activities they do at home.
Well, my kids are older too now, and but they still remember when they were in the primary level at Montessori and the things that they did. And now that they're in their mid to late 20s, they still bring that up, and they remember those activities in such detail. So that's always interesting. It does stick with them.
I'm going to chime in and piggyback on Marianne. Jake is 18 and Lexi is 20. And now that I've been teaching from home, every once in a while they'll walk in and go, oh, I remember doing that. Do you have this? And then they go off on a tangent of how about this? How about this? How about this? So, and the grace and courtesy and the practical life that we instilled in them when they were younger, and they went to Montessori when they were. The school I used to teach at had a baby program, so they started at 3 months. When they transitioned over to a traditional education, all the teachers were like, your children have such grace and courtesy and they're respectful of all their friends. Like, this is a pleasant change. So it does stick with them.
I've got a 34-year-old and a 33-year-old, and I still have things that my kids have made. Shay loved to sew buttons on, and she'd go up and she'd go down, and sometimes she'd go around and then she'd go back up, and you know what? The button still worked. So it's process, not product.
Yeah, I was going to add to it that you do have to rewash the dishes after they go to bed.
Yeah.
And what you have to do is you have to set aside like 3 times as much time that you would normally do something. It forces you as a parent to really slow down, because everything takes so much longer, and it develops patience in you as a parent. But yeah, clean the dishes afterwards. Sometimes the food is kind of questionable too. That's okay.
I didn't realize how many things we were already doing with the kids around the house that fit into these practical life skills for each of the ages. And now I have a lot more ideas for them when all of us get a little frustrated with how the day's going. We can stop and they can help me with getting things done around the house. And now force me, like she said, to slow down a little bit, get a little patience and perspective on the day. And we can also get some things done together.
And I think playing those board games or playing the dominoes or things like that, that you can do as a unit. And those are probably some of the best memories that I have when my kids were younger, just really enjoying the moment. So,
yeah. Gardening is mine.
Yeah.
We enjoy that to do that too as a family. I usually try and set aside like a little area for Ferris to dig and play while I do other things, and Zoe can kind of help me. They both really enjoy watering the plants. Sometimes that includes watering mom, watering ourselves, but we have fun with it and the job gets done.
Yeah, one of the resources that is in that document is from the Wisconsin Extension, and it has a whole guide about gardening with kids. This is a great time to start planting the garden. It gives you hope for spring, and this is when all the seed catalogs start to show up. And so it's if you haven't done that before, it might be a new. There you go. Is that Wayside? Is that Wayside? So it's a great time to start planting the garden, but that's in one of the resources.
Koleski's do a lot of gardening too. Grandma does. Amy.
I was thinking about the story about blowing your nose, and I always would tell this to my students about Maria Montessori teaching the kids how to blow their noses. And so one day they saw her come into the classroom, and she had a really fancy handkerchief and took it out and blew her nose. And so then they begged her to teach them how to blow their noses the proper way. And so she went through the whole process. It probably has about 30 steps, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when they were done, they applauded her and thanked her.
You know you've given a very good presentation when everybody starts clapping. It's like, you guys really, you don't have to clap. That's one thing I miss this year. I don't get ovations like I do in the classroom.
I think I probably, maybe to sum everything up, is just have fun.
Yeah.
Enjoy yourself and have fun.
Yeah.
And I almost think that this pandemic has helped a lot of us realize that we do need to slow down. So.
And get cooking. Thanks you guys for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was interesting.
Bye. Bye.
I'm going to stop recording.
Bye, Christine.